isn't blowing any harder or softer than before. I'd rather talk. Believe me, I have all the time in the world. I have the rest of my life to spend by your side. Don't say that. But you're tired, I go on, pretending not to have heard her remark. I can see the storm approaching. Like all storms, it brings destruction. But at the same time, it soaks the fields, and the wisdom of the heavens falls with the rain. Like all storms, it will pass. The more violent it is, the more quickly it will pass. I have, thank God, learned to weather storms. And as if all the holy Marys of the sea were listening to me, the first drops of rain begin to fall on the tin roof. The young woman finishes her cigarette. I take her hand and lead her to my bed. She lies down and closes her eyes. I don't know how long she slept. I watched her without thinking anything. And the voice I'd heard once in the forest was telling me that all was well, that I needn't worry, that the ways in which fate changes people are always favorable, if we only know how to decipher them. I don't know who saved her from the orphanage and brought her up and made her into the independent woman she appears to be. I offered up a prayer to that family who had allowed my daughter to survive and achieve a better life. In the middle of the prayer, I felt jealousy, despair, regret, and I stopped talking to Saint Sarah. Had it really been so important to bring her back? There lay everything I'd lost and could never recover. But there too was the physical manifestation of my love. I knew nothing, and yet everything was revealed to me. I remembered the times I considered suicide and later abortion, when I'd imagined leaving that part of the world and setting off on foot to wherever my strength would take me. I remembered my blood and tears on the tree trunk, the dialogue with nature that had intensified from that moment on and has never left me since, although few people in my tribe have any inkling of this. My protector, whom I met while I was wandering in the forest, understood, but he had just died. The light is unstable, the wind blows it out, the lightning ignites it. It is never simply there, shining like the sun, but it is worth fighting for, he used to say. He was the only person who accepted me and persuaded the tribe that I could once again form part of their world. He was the only one with the moral authority to ensure that I wasn't expelled. And, alas, the only one who would never meet my daughter. I wept for him while she lay sleeping on my bed. She, who must be used to all the world's comforts. Thousands of questions filled my head. Who were her adoptive parents? Where did she live? Had she been to university? Was there someone she loved? What were her plans? But I wasn't the one who had traveled the world in search of her. On the contrary, I wasn't there to ask questions, but to answer them. She opened her eyes. I wanted to touch her hair, to give her the affection I'd kept locked inside all these years, but I wasn't sure how she would react and thought it best to do nothing. You came here to find out why... No. I don't want to know why a mother would abandon her daughter. There is no reason for anyone to do that. Her words wound my heart, but I don't know how to respond. Who am I? What blood runs in my veins? Yesterday, when I found out where you were, I was absolutely terrified. Where do I start? I suppose, like all gypsies, you can read the future in the cards. No, that's not true. We only do that with Gage as a way of earning a living. We never read cards or hands or try to predict the future within our own tribe. And you? I'm part of the tribe, even though the woman who brought me into the world sent me far away. Yes. So what am I doing here? Now that I've seen your face, I can go back to London. My holidays are nearly over. Do you want to know about your father? No, I haven't the slightest interest in him. And suddenly I realized that I could help her. It was as if someone else's voice came out of my mouth. Try to understand the blood that flows in my veins and in your heart. That was my teacher speaking through me. She closed her eyes again and slept for nearly 12 hours. The following day, I took her to the outskirts of Shibuya, where there's a kind of museum for the different kinds of houses found in the region. For the first time, I'd had the pleasure of preparing her breakfast. She was more rested, less tense, and she asked me questions about gypsy culture, but never about me. She told me a little of her life. I learned that I was a grandmother. She didn't mention her husband or her adoptive parents. She said she sold land in a country far from there and that she would soon return to her work. I explained that I could show her how to make amulets to ward off evil, but she didn't seem interested. However, when I spoke to her about the healing properties of herbs, she asked me to teach her how to recognize them. In the park where we were walking, I tried to pass on to her all the knowledge I possessed, although I was sure she'd forget everything as soon as she returned to her home country, which by then I knew was England. We don't possess the earth possesses us. We used to travel constantly, and everything around us was ours. The plants, the water, the landscapes through which our caravans passed. Our laws were nature's laws. The strong survived, and we, the weak, the eternal exiles, learned to hide our strength and to use it only when necessary. We don't believe that God made the universe. We believe that God is the universe, and that we are contained in Him and He in us. Although I stopped, then decided to go on, because it was a way of paying homage to my protector. In my opinion, we should call him goddess or mother. Not like the woman who gives her daughter up to an orphanage, but like the woman in all of us, who protects us when we are in danger. She will always be with us, while we perform our daily tasks with love and joy, understanding that nothing is suffering, and that everything is a way of praising creation. Athena, now I knew her name, looked across at one of the houses in the park. What's that? A church? The hours I'd spent by her side had allowed me to recover my strength. I asked if she was trying to change the subject. She thought for a moment before replying. No. I want to go on listening to what you have to tell me, although according to everything I read before I came here, what you're saying isn't part of the gypsy tradition. My protector taught me these things. He knew things the gypsies don't know, and he made the tribe take me back. And as I learned from him, I gradually became aware of the power of the mother. I, who had rejected the blessing of being a mother. I pointed at a small bush. If one day your son has a fever, place him next to a young plant like this and shake its leaves. The fever will pass over into the plant. If ever you feel anxious, do the same thing. I'd rather you told me more about your protector. He taught me that in the beginning, creation was so lonely that it created someone else to talk to. Those two creatures, in an act of love, made a third person, and from then on, they multiplied by thousands and millions. You asked about the church we just saw. I don't know when it was built, and I'm not interested. My temple is the park, the sky, the water in the lake, and the stream that feeds it. My people are those who share my ideas, and not those I'm bound to by bonds of blood. My ritual is being with those people and celebrating everything around me. When are you thinking of going home? Possibly tomorrow. I don't want to inconvenience you. Another wound to my heart, but I could say nothing. No, please, stay as long as you like. I only asked because I'd like to celebrate your arrival with the others. If you agree, I can do this tonight. She says nothing, and I understand this as a yes. Back home, I give her more food, and she explains that she needs to go to her hotel in Sibiu to fetch some clothes. By the time she returns, I have everything organized. We go to a hill to the south of the town. We sit around a fire that has just been lit. We play instruments, we sing, we dance, we tell stories. She watches but doesn't take part, although the Rom Barreau told me that she was a fine dancer. For the first time in many years, I feel happy, because I've had the chance to prepare a ritual for my daughter and to celebrate with her the miracle of the two of us being together, alive and healthy, and immersed in the love of the Great Mother. Afterward, she says that she'll sleep at the hotel that night. I ask her if this is goodbye, but she says it isn't. She'll come back tomorrow. For a whole week, my daughter and I share together the adoration of the universe. One night, she brought a friend, making it quite clear that he was neither her boyfriend nor the father of her child. The man, who must have been 10 years older than her, asked who we were worshipping in our rituals. I explained that worshipping someone means, according to my protector, placing that person outside of our world. We are not worshipping anyone or anything. We are simply communing with creation. But do you pray? Myself, I pray to Saint Sarah. But here we are part of everything, and we celebrate rather than pray. I felt that Athena was proud of my answer, but I was really only repeating my protector's words. And why do this in a group, when we can all celebrate the universe on our own? Because the others are me, and I am the others. Athena looked at me then, and I felt it was my turn to wound her heart. I'm leaving tomorrow, she said. Before you do, come and say goodbye to your mother. That was the first time in all those days I had used the word. My voice didn't tremble, my gaze was steady, and I knew that despite everything, standing before me was the blood of my blood, the fruit of my womb. At that moment, I was behaving like a little girl who had just found out that the world isn't full of ghosts and curses, as grown-ups have taught us. It's full of love, regardless of how that love is manifested. A love that forgives our mistakes and redeems our sins. She gave me a long embrace. Then she adjusted the veil I wear to cover my hair. I may not have had a husband, but according to Gypsy tradition, I had to wear a veil because I was no longer a virgin. What would tomorrow bring me, along with the departure of the being I've always both loved and feared from a distance? I was everyone, and everyone was me and my solitude. The following day, Athena arrived bearing a bunch of flowers. She tidied my room, told me that I should wear glasses because my eyes were getting worn out from all that sewing. She asked if the friends I celebrated with experienced any problems with the tribe, and I told her that they didn't, that my protector had been a very respected man, had taught us many things, and had followers all over the world. I explained that he died shortly before she arrived. One day, a cat brushed against him. To us, that means death, and we were all very worried. But although there is a ritual that can lift such a curse, my protector said it was time for him to leave, that he needed to travel to those other worlds that he knew existed, to be reborn as a child, and to rest for a while in the arms of the mother. His funeral took place in a forest nearby. It was a very simple affair, but people came from all over the world. Among those people, was there a woman of about 35, with dark hair? I can't be sure, but possibly. Why do you ask? I met someone in a hotel in Bucharest who said that she'd come to attend the funeral of a friend. I think she said something about her teacher. She asked me to tell her more about the gypsies, But there wasn't much she didn't already know, mainly because, apart from customs and traditions, we know little of our own history. I suggested that she go to France one day and take, on my behalf, a shawl to present to the image of Saint Sarah in the little French village of Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer. I came here because there was something missing in my life, she said. I needed to fill up my blank spaces, and I thought just seeing your face would be enough. But it wasn't. I also needed to understand that I was loved. You are loved. I said nothing else for a long time. I'd finally put into words what I'd wanted to say ever since I let her go. So that she would not become too emotional, I went on. I'd like to ask you something. Ask me anything you like. I want to ask your forgiveness. She bit her lip. I've always been a very restless person. I work hard, spend too much time looking after my son. I dance like a mad thing. I learned calligraphy. I go to courses on selling. I read one book after another. But that's all a way of avoiding those moments when nothing is happening. Because those blank spaces give me a feeling of absolute emptiness, in which not a single crumb of love exists. My parents have always done everything they could for me, and I do nothing but disappoint them. But here, during the time we've spent together, celebrating nature and the Great Mother, I've realized that those empty spaces were starting to get filled up. They were transformed into pauses. The moment when the man lifts his hand from the drum before bringing it down again to strike it hard. I think I can leave now. I'm not saying that I'll go in peace, because my life needs to follow the rhythm I'm accustomed to. But I won't leave feeling bitter. Do all gypsies believe in the Great Mother? If you were to ask them, none of them would say yes. They've adopted the beliefs and customs of the places where they've settled, and the only thing that unites us in religious terms is the worship of Saint Sarah, and making a pilgrimage, at least once in our lifetime, to visit her tomb in Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer. Some tribes call her Kali Sarah, Black Sarah, or the Virgin of the Gypsies, as she's known in Lourdes. I have to go, Athena said after a while. The friend you met the other day is leaving with me. He seems like a nice man. You're talking like a mother. I am your mother. And I'm your daughter. She embraced me, this time with tears in her eyes. I stroked her hair as I held her in my arms, as I'd always dreamed I would, ever since the day when fate, or my fear, separated us. I asked her to take good care of herself, and she told me that she had learned a lot. You will learn a lot more too, because although nowadays we're all trapped in houses, cities, and jobs, there still flows in your blood the time of caravans and journeyings, and the teachings that the Great Mother placed in our path so that we could survive. Learn, but always learn with other people by your side. Don't be alone in the search, because if you take a wrong step, you'll have no one there to help put you right. She was still crying, still clinging to me, almost begging me to let her stay. I pleaded with my protector not to let me shed one tear, because I wanted the best for Athena, and her destiny was to go forward. Here, in Transylvania, apart from my love, she would find nothing else. And although I believe that love is enough to justify a whole existence, I was quite sure that I couldn't ask her to sacrifice her future in order to stay by my side. Athena planted a kiss on my forehead and left without saying goodbye, perhaps thinking she would return one day. Every Christmas, she sent me enough money to spend the whole year without having to sew. But I never went to the bank to cash her checks, even though everyone in the tribe thought I was behaving like a foolish woman. 6 months ago, she stopped sending money. She must have realized that I need my sewing to fill up what she called the blank spaces. I would love to see her again, but I know she will never come back. She is probably a big executive now, married to the man she loves. And I probably have lots of grandchildren, which means that my blood will remain on this earth and my mistakes will be forgiven.